From the Capitol right now is Democratic Senator from Illinois and Senate Majority Whip, Senator Dick Durbin. Senator, it's always great to have you with us. Let me ask you something. Around the table this week, everybody suggested that the president's bill has no chance of passing Congress, that it's just a political document. What would you say to those skeptics?
I think they're wrong, and I hope they're wrong, because frankly the notion that we do nothing and this economy gets well is very naive. We've got to work together. The president has reached out to the Republicans. They have no plan. Did you see the letter that they sent to the Federal Reserve yesterday saying do nothing about the economy, don't lower the interest rates? It's the same approach they're taking when it comes to action on Capitol Hill. They want to do nothing, and they spend most of their time just saying we've got to protect the wealthiest in America. That is not a good approach. The president's plan is a great plan and a great starting point for what I hope is a turnaround in this economy.
Senator Durbin, you showed courage when you were on the Fiscal Commission. You were a Democrat and Mark McKinnon, I mean, he went out on the line.
Yeah.
Signing on to things he did not believe in personally, but this senator showed a lot of courage, didn't he?
He did, and the No Labels community really appreciated what he's been doing on the commission and since then on these issues. Senator, I want to ask you, what happens if we don't come to an agreement before if the super committee doesn't come to an agreement, which I think most people would think is probably the case? Is the trigger going to happen, or are there other alternatives if the trigger hits?
It's a pretty stark situation, but I have a lot of faith that the super committee will come around. Last night there was a meeting of Democratic and Republican senators, business leaders, community leaders, talking about how we can move this forward, working with the super committee, finding a way to reduce this deficit not by $1.2 trillion, but to a grand total of over $4 trillion over 10 years. Do it in a thoughtful, sensible, balanced way. That's what I voted for on Simpson's Bowls. That's what I support on Gang of Six. I think we can do this, and the spirit, bipartisan spirit, is there in the Senate to get it done.
Senator Donny Deutsch, I want to go back to the first question on the theory that Barack's proposal is political, it has no chance of getting passed. Whether it's a good plan or not, tell me why you think this has any chance of getting past the Republican Congress.
All I can tell you, I can't predict what the Republicans will do. We are now watching the Tea Party shutdown movie for the third time this year. The ending isn't surprising. It isn't even interesting anymore. They can't get together the basic Republican votes on the House side to even pass the continuing resolution they agreed to just a few weeks ago, let alone some disaster aid for a country that's been hard hit by a lot of disasters. So I can't tell you if the Republicans will come around in that respect, but I will tell you this. There are Republican senators who are courageous, who are speaking up, who are saying that we should do this on a bipartisan basis. When we had a press conference on this last week, I said to the press, what's wrong with this picture? That we'd have 26 Democratic and Republican senators standing together saying we can work out a reasonable agreement to deal with the deficit just runs counter to the image that most people have of this mixed up town.
Katty Kay.
Senator Durbin, you said it there. We've watched this movie before. You can forgive international financial markets for looking at the American political system at the moment and saying, well, a year before a presidential election, we now have to assume America can't do anything. And there will be pain. There'll be a price pay for all of this inaction in the country in the face of huge challenges, won't there?
You're exactly right. And my feeling was when both parties went home, members of the House and Senate, over August, and actually spoke to the people back home who are clearly angry with us, as they should be, because of all of these obstacles and obstructionism, that I thought we came back with more resolve. I thought the last thing in the world the Republicans would want to do is see another shutdown. But look at that vote yesterday in the House of Representatives. Last night, Eric Cantor got on the news and said, well, it's all President Obama's fault. Come on, give me a break. This is an agreement which we reached, Democrats and Republicans, with the president to move forward and fund this government, which is the first thing we need to do. The second thing we need to do is to focus on turning this economy around and creating jobs. We can do that, but we need to have some breakthrough on the Republican side, some buy-in, certainly in the House of Representatives.
Senator Mark McKinnon, I'm encouraged to hear your note of optimism about the super committee. But what, in your opinion, has changed in the environment or politically that will make that happen when it hasn't been able to happen before? What's different?
Standard & Poor's. You know, it's to see a downturn in the rating of the United States for the first time in history, to watch us as we were sitting there on the edge of the precipice with the debt ceiling. threat of default on American economy for the first time in our history, you know, this ought to be a sobering experience for all of us who are involved in public life. And I think many members, certainly, I want to go back to the group in the Senate. We have a bipartisan group that gets it, that understands we can move this America forward if we can agree on some basics. I've got to give on some issues that mean a lot to me. The Republicans have to do the same. But if we come together and agree and work on this in a reasonable way, the American people stand behind us.
What about the president, Senator Durbin? His close friends have been telling me for 3 years now that at some point the president was going to make the courageous move on entitlement grants. I will say it again. You did something that very few people in Washington are doing right now. You made that courageous move on the debt commission. You and I disagree probably on 90, maybe 50, 60% of issues economically. And yet, when I see you doing that, I say there's a leader. We need more Republicans and Democrats like that, and we need a president like that. When does the president show the courage to lead on entitlements specifically so Republicans can be forced to lead on tax reform?
Joe, I can tell you that the president, I believe, has reached out 3 different occasions, very specifically, with the vice president's group, bringing together bipartisan leadership and talking about putting everything on the table. 2 specific overtures to Speaker Boehner, saying we can sit down and have a big deal, one that is going to help the economy and turn it around, have some economic growth and put people back to work. Both times, Cantor walked away from the vice president's meeting. John Boehner walked away twice from the president in those negotiations. When we came out with our Gang of 6 proposal, the president held a press conference and said, I can buy these principles. I know what those principles are. They're the same as Bowles-Simpson. This president is on board if we can come up with a bipartisan plan. And you hit the nail on the head. We have to be willing to say on the Republican side that they will put revenue on the table. We have to put meaningful entitlement reform on the table that still preserves the basic protections of Social Security and Medicare. I think we can do that.
All right. Thank you so much, Senator. We greatly appreciate it. Always good talking to you. Senate Majority Whip Dick Durbin. And coming up next, we're going to sit down with former DNC Chairman Terry McAuliffe.